everyone. Good morning if you're in the US, good afternoon if you're in Europe, and good evening if you're in Asia. So I'm really glad to see so many of you for this first webinar after the summer. Today we'll be talking about how to clean data with free tools. So it's a question that comes often for people who are starting using Tableau, and even if you're a bit more advanced with Tableau, you probably always get dirty data from government open data, or it's very seldom that you get clean data. So first we'll start with a few examples of what is really bad data and how Tableau handles that. And then we will see how to clean your data in Excel, so basic to intermediary stuff. And I'll talk a little bit about OpenRefine, which is a free tool that you can download and then use for cleaning up your data. It's pretty good for stuff like spelling inconsistencies that are not easy to automate in Excel. So of clean, I'll send you to the chat. So it's at cleansheet.org. And these are stuff that you should always check when you open a data set, because they are a nightmare to deal with in Tableau. And in any tool, it's just not machine readable. So the first one is don't merge cells. So if you have the bad habit of merging cells in your Excels, please stop doing it, unless you work in finance, and this is a best practice in your work environment. But usually, if someone has to rework with your data later, it's very difficult. The second one is don't mix data and metadata. So if you have instructions or comments or sources to list regarding your data, you should do it in another sheet. And the first row of your data should always contain column headers. So gladly, those three are actually not that bad for Tableau, because since version 9, we have a data interpreter. So let me open one data set that has these three particularities, and then we will see how Tableau will deal with it. So here is a very ugly data set, and I'm bringing Tableau here as well. So what's wrong with this data set? First, you see that some columns have been merged, like some lines here actually. Like this one, you can see it here. The merge and center area is grayed out, and this one is merged as well. And then you have two levels of headers, so the headers are not really in just one line, in one row, they are in several rows. And the third one, the second one was it's mixing metadata and the data. So you have metadata notes and other notes and a title. So let's try and open this in Tableau and see how it deals with it. So I'm just bringing my file and dropping it here. And first off, it looks like Tableau is not really understanding what it's seeing, which is normal. But I was telling you about the data interpreter that you will find here on the top left corner. And it says data interpreter might be able to clean your Excel workbook. So you just cross your fingers and click the box. And here it corrects everything. And you can actually review the results to try to understand a bit more what Tableau has been doing below the hood. So it's telling you, okay, this is what your table looked like initially. And Tableau has been using the merge one as a header. And then it's been combining, okay, it's easier to see it in Tableau. It's been combining the double level of headers together. So there was one that was type of offense, and the below one was violent disorder. So it just grouped them together. And it did that for all the double headers, which gives this results. And of course, it got rid of the title and the notes. which makes me realize I haven't let you know how to ask me questions. You probably know that you've been muted on arrival. So if at any point you don't find something very clear, just leave a note in the chat box. And I'll be checking. I'm alone handling this webinar today, but I'll make sure I'll check it regularly to see incoming questions. All right. So Tableau is pretty good at handling the three problems. Then if we read on, we see that the fourth one is that when a data set contains totals and averages, that's not really good for a machine, because a machine will consider that every line is a single observation and will not understand that you might have mixed some aggregate statistics like totals or average. So this is actually something that we have in our data set and that we wouldn't be able to correct per se in Tableau except by excluding total. Like if we went to Premier League team, we could just go here and exclude the total. But that's not really data cleaning. So that's when we start to realize that there might be some data cleaning that needs to be done ahead of importing stuff in Tableau. And then I'll probably just let you read the other ones. I think the first four ones are most important. This is quite obvious, like don't add stars or little symbols to your cells. Try to standardize whenever possible, like ISO codes or like administrative levels, zip codes, cities, like try to use standard stuff. Don't use colors in your spreadsheet, the machine cannot read it. And don't put like a hyphen or a blank or NA in the cell, because it will just make like if there's no value for an observation, just leave it blank. Don't put NA, because it will just confuse Excel or any application, because it will see numbers and then string, so it's not really helpful. All right. So those were some of the most common problems that you will have when you get a data set. And now we'll see how you can fix some of these problems using Excel and OpenRefine. And we'll be working on two different data sets today. So for Excel, we'll be working on nuclear reactors data. And for OpenRefine, I will use Canada and US data. So my first data set, the reactor one, is a CSV. So I could try, let's see what is CSV in Excel. The data sets, I will send them to you later, so you will receive an email after attending this. I'm not sharing it now because you will also have a recording if you want to practice. I'm just thinking that if you are doing it alone, it might take much longer than the 45 minutes we have. So I'll just send you everything. You'll have a link where you can download, and you'll have a link to the video. And if you want to redo some of the steps, you can just do that at your own pace later on. All right. So this is our reactors data set. It was a CSV that I opened. It was opened in Excel by default. And now I have a very common problem with CSVs, which is that they are not directly read by Excel. So what I need to do here, something you've probably done thousands of times, is go to data and then text to columns. And here you choose delimited because it's a CSV, and CSV stands for comma separated values. So it means that all the values are separated by a comma in my data set. By delimiter is not the tab, it's the comma. I can see the qualifier is indeed a quotation mark, and I can just treat consecutive ones as one, and then I do next and finish. It's a nice cell-looking table. Everything is text. This column seems to have the same everywhere. It's not necessarily. I'll just delete it. And now I have something slightly better. So this is my data. In this one, it's actually the reactor's name. So sorry, a Belgian journal So one thing that when you start on a data set, before you make any modification, is to like make an original tab and then move or copy and create a copy of your tab that will be the one where you do the edits. And this one you can call it manual edit, because that's what we will do first before using a bit of formulas. And so now that you're in this manual edit, you should feel a bit more comfortable to do. And takes me to another thing I wanted to show you today that is really important, because for quite some time I was correcting those manually, which is really stupid, because there is a much better way to do this. So, and being French, I was always having accentuations problems when I opened CSVs. So all my French accents on the E's, on the A's, O's, U's were messed up. And I was just stupidly correcting them. So let me show you. We will close this Excel. So remember what we did here is we just opened our CSV and made a text to columns move transformation. The good way to open a CSV with characters that are unknown to English in a blank sheet. This is a tip I really want you to remember. So just pay attention. I don't know how to say that more clearly. So you open a blank sheet, then you go to data, and here instead of this text to columns, we will actually pay attention to from text. So you can actually import data from text, and your CSV is actually separated with commas, text. And so let's get back to our reactor CSV. And I get a similar menu to the one that I have when I do text to columns. It's asking me if it's delimited, but there are a few more stuff that are optional, so I can confirm that my data has a header in the first row. And most importantly, I can say what is the encoding of my data. And this is important because in the beginning of the computers, the encoding was made by the US, because it was all born in the US. And then different countries went for the, it's a bit technical and I don't know how to explain this nicely, but you know how each letter is coded, is an alphanumerical value is coded in zeros and ones. Well, the US coded the letters that they needed, and then they left the other values for other countries to code. And so French coded in a way, and Russians coded in a different way, so it became very messy. But there is one standard that most people tend to use, and that's the Unicode UTF-8. So that's the one you will go for when you open a file that you're not sure, and especially if it's a file that you realize has some accents. Just open it from text and clarify that it's a Unicode UTF-8. And we will do the same as before. It's separated with commas, with quotation marks as qualifiers. here I can directly say that I don't want to import the first column that has the same stuff over and over again. And I can do stuff like mentioning that the last one is a date with a day, month, year format. And once I'm good, I just say OK. And now it opens again. But because I clarified that we want a UTF-8 format to be able to read the accents, then I don't have the problem with my accent. I'm pretty sure that this wasn't the only one. So save my minutes, identify the missing and replace. Okay, so now it's looking nice. So we'll do the tip that I shared with you again. So I will call this one the original, and I will make a copy where I can do my edits. Okay, can you hear me? I see some people are not hearing me clearly. Is that better now? Momentarily better. Okay. If it really becomes unbearable, tell me, and I will connect with my phone. I'm really sorry about that. All right. So if you're hearing me, let's appreciate that and move on to the next tip. So the next tip is when you want to do a quick audit of your data, use a filter. So select all your table, first row to last, from first to last cell, and then in the data part, click filter. And so it makes each column filterable, and you can quickly see what's in the column. So it will show you only the individual values and not duplicates. So the reactor names will be difficult to audit because I have no idea what's a good reactor name compared to what's a mistaken reactor name. But for the countries, it should be easier. So let's have a quick look at the list of countries and see if we have any anomaly. And we note one here, Russia, 11 megawatt E. And then here at the bottom, we see United States of America is written entirely, and then there is also a USA option. So we need to correct those two. And let's do it now because it's only a couple of corrections. I told you that Excel is not the best for correcting misspellings. But when it's limited to a couple or three stuff that you can do manually, just do it manually. Don't go to other tools. So let's go to Russia and see what's happening. So it just seems that stuff got pulled and should be pushed back one column right. So I'll start with the status until the date. And I'll just copy paste it, move it away by one column. And then obviously there was some problem with the CSV encoding. So the value is actually 11 megawatts and should just be put here, and we should get rid of this quotation marks and comma. So if we go back in the filter, we see that now we only have one Russia, which is perfect. So now let's move on to the United States of America and USA thing. So we see that in the middle of our data set, at some point, there's two USAs. So let's just copy paste United States of America. And so if we select everything again, we are fine. Then for the capacity, quick audit will show you that you have two problems here. One is that sometimes you have gigawatts and sometimes you have megawatts. That's not a big problem, but we might want to homogenize this. And another one is that you have sometimes a comma and sometimes a dot. So we'll correct all of this at once. Let's move on, but remember that we have two things to do in this column. And then in the status column, the only thing is that it's not consistent in terms of casing. So I have a lowercase and uppercase stuff that I can correct very easily later. This seems pretty good. And my dates seem pretty consistent. I'm missing some, but that's all right. So let's start with the easiest, which will be to make the case consistent for status. So to do this, I will just insert the new column, and I will use a formula, a text formula. So if you're not very familiar with formulas, you can go to formulas and see what is available. And if you hover over a formula, you will see what it does. So to change the case of formulas, you have the upper formula that will help you convert everything to upper. Here, because the rest of like the countries and the names, they are all in lowercase, so it would be more logical to use lower. But there's actually the perfect one that we need here, which is proper, and it will convert everything to lower except the first letter in each word, which will be an uppercase. So what I will do is just do proper and make each cell on the E column proper in the F column. I'm sorry, I don't know what's your level of Excel. I assume most of you are very familiar with it, but just to make sure, if you don't know, if you double click on the cross here at the bottom right corner, it will just extend to the whole. All right, so now we copy paste the correct, and we will see that if I do this, something happens. So why is that? Because here I have a formula, and if I copy it and move it proper, what's in. So here what I do is paste special. So you can do it from here by a right click, or you can go home and do paste. The one with the little digits is actually allowing to paste only the value. And once I do this, I don't have a formula anymore. It's actually a value, and I can get rid of this column. Okay, so that was pretty easy to correct. Let's move on to this one where we knew we had 2 elements to correct. So let me insert where our cooking. And what we can start with is splitting the column on the space. So as to get the the megawatts and the gigawatts in this column, and keeping the values in the left side column. So I'll just select my D column, go data again, text to columns, and say that it's delimited with the space. So when I check my values, I see that this part is consistent. I have gigawatts and megawatts. But in this area, I have, if you remember, the dots. Oh, and I also have this one that I hadn't noticed. I have commas, dots, and integers. So let me keep only those, the ones that have a problem. Let's start with this one. I think we're in a situation where instead of just putting a blank value, because they didn't value, they put a hyphen. So in this case, I'll just apply the principle that I said that we read together earlier. If you don't have the value, leave it blank. And then I need to decide which one is the correct one between the dot and the comma. If you're not very familiar with Excel, something you should know, and that's pretty helpful, is that when Excel recognizes some data as a number, it will align it to the right. And if Excel recognizes something as a string of characters, it will align it to the left. So here it seems that the 1.3 is a number and this one is a string. So to correct and to make this one a number, I will just need to replace the commas by a dot. This is done easily either by going in the home page to Find and Select, and you have Replace here. But if you use Excel often, or Word or the Microsoft Office suite, you probably know the shortcut, which is Control-H. And then we will say find commas and replace them with dots. And replace all. It's done two replacement, which is fine. And now good, we can see that it's been corrected. I'm a bit curious with this 10 looks like it's yeah, no, it's correct. Okay, cool. Super. I see in the comments that someone is saying Ukraine misspelled. That might be the case. I oversaw it. Cool. So let's correct Ukraine as well. See, there were actually more corrections than I thought. Ukraine, and the one that's wrong is Ukraine. So let's just copy Ukraine and put it here where we have the Ukrainians. All right, great, super. So we're almost done. One thing that would be great now is to just have a unit, like one that have everything on it. So what I will do is I will just add a cell here, and we'll make a quick formula, not too difficult, to try to get everything in megawatts. So the objective is that in this column, in the end, we will have megawatts. And to do this, my formula will go something like if is gigawatt, then multiply this F to gigawatt E, then, and it's just, you don't actually use then like in Tableau, the value if true, so value if true will be 2 times 1 5 just D. Pull it 1.3 and 1.6, that it should be we don't replace my data. Okay. I already have the clean data set, so I'm not going to save it, but at this point, you could save it. Note that if you are not sure and you're about to do a formula or make a transformation, you can always make more copies and just call them transfo megawatt to gigawatt or something like this. If you are afraid that something might go wrong and you may want to go back to the previous step. Okay, so I want to keep some time to go to OpenRefine, which is the tool that is least known among newcomers to the data world. So let me just close this one and introduce you to the data set that will clean the OpenRefine. It was a crowdsourced data set where Slate was actually asking people to send news from their local newspapers about gun death. And it's 7,000 rows. And it has also some, like when you crowdsource data, usually people might misspell some things, or the way that they spell the name of their cities might differ with the capitalization. Like we just saw with Ukraine, but in a much bigger scale. So this is when OpenRefine comes in handy. Audio has cut out again. Is it back? Okay, thanks. Maybe it's when I move, so I'll try to be as stable as possible. So first, yeah, I guess you don't have OpenRefine on your laptop yet. So here is the link where you will find the downloadable version. It exists on Windows, Mac, and Linux, and so it has a big community behind it, and you will have lots of information. Like if you're blocked in the installation, you can go to the GitHub page, and you'll find lots of helpful material to get to learn it. And when you have it, it's actually something you install on your computer. So let me show you. It's on my desktop. Let me just clear that. Okay, I'll move it around. It looks like this. It's just a file on your desktop. And then when you open it, you have the openrefine.exe. And when you double click on, so that's after you install it. When you double click on openrefine.exe, this command table opens, like just what's happening under the hood. And OpenRefine will open something in your browser, and that's where you will be able to work. So you will be working on your browser. So it's something I'm not too good with computer science, but I think this is hosted on your desktop. Okay, so when you have a data set to clean in OpenRefine, you're actually creating a project. It might look a bit overwhelming at first, but just hang in there and you will see that it's so powerful that it's worth investing a bit of time to understand how it works. So I create a project, I go find the file in my computer. This is the SlateGun Dev CSV, and then I click next. But you could get data from other places as well, so it's pretty cool. And pane where I can tell a bit more about my data. So here, Find didn't see that it was a comma separated value. It thought it was tabs separated values. So I just correct this. And I advise you to always take this one, parse cell text into numbers, dates, etc., because then it will be like in what is a numerical value and what is a string. So numerical values will align right and strings will align left, etc. And yeah, I think we're good. In case there would be accentuations, we can select a UTF. But otherwise, so once you're in your project, we could call it again USA, and then you create it. And you arrive in this data pane. So first thing you notice is that you're not seeing all of your data. You're only seeing the first 10 or 25 or rows, whatever. It's just because OpenRefine is trying to make it light for your computer to handle all the data. So if you have a really big data set, it won't crash your computer. While if you try to open, I don't know, 2 million rows in Excel, it might crash very fast. But all your data is information to our data, it will be applied to the whole data set. And then another thing that you notice is that you have undo redo here. So it means that it will keep track of whatever transformation you perform on your data. And you will be able to go back, and you will also be able to export a script if it's a data set that you have on a regular basis and that you will have to clean following the same steps. You can keep the script of the transformations. All right. So it looks pretty much like in any table, like Google Sheet or Excel. You have your columns, you have your headers, and you might be curious about the little arrows here. So what you need to know about OpenRefine is that it uses a facet logic, which makes it easy to identify outliers. So if I use a text facet because my column contains text, this will see how many different occurrences of text I have in the column. So here I have 2071 CDs. And if I was looking at something that is numerical, I could have a numeric facet, and it would show me the whole range of my numerical values. So it's pretty useful. Like, let's say if I had a 0 to 500 range, I would know that my value of 500 is something that I need to investigate. And then with the filter, I could just use the 500. Like, let's say I think the 96 might be suspicious, so I might use my filter, a person who was 96. So let me get rid of the blanks first. Sorry, I'll keep on the numerical values. And yeah, I see that actually two 90-year-olds were killed by guns, so that makes sense. If it didn't, I could just, if I noticed that it was 950 and that most likely it's an error, someone has added a 0, then I could just erase the 0 here. So I could make individual transformations. But I told you that the real strength of OpenRefine is to do batch transformations, especially for inconsistency in spelling. So let's check our cities and see if we see some spelling inconsistencies. All right, I didn't have to go very far. I see 2 Albuquerques, and it seems when I hover over them that there is a blank, like there is a white space at the end of the second one. So those are obviously the same city, and I'm found more of this. So here is how you can fix this in OpenRefine. It's what OpenRefine calls a cluster. So let's click again on this arrow. And when you want to make a transformation, you actually go to Edit Cells. And if it's a simple transformation with a formula, we will do one together later. You go Transform. But if you want to cluster and see if there are some clusters of inconsistencies, you go Cluster and Edit it. And here OpenRefine gives you this very cool where you see that it's identified all the things that look really alike, and that might actually be the same. So Brooklyn without a blank space at the end, and Brooklyn with a blank space. So and then it's asking me to merge those. And so if I agree, I will click, and at the end I will say merge. So Grand Space looks lookable, yeah. It all looks like it's just a missed. All right. Kansas, sometimes it's a blank space, sometimes it's a capitalization that's wrong, like here, small c, big C. Okay, so all of those look pretty, they look pretty obvious. But for this one, I'm not from the US and I'm not very familiar, but it doesn't, like, it might not be the same city. So I'll just, sorry, I'll do it again. I'll just go to the bottom of my line. And here I have the option to browse this cluster, which I just clicked. And this opened a new window where I just see the elements that are in the cluster. And I see Forest Park GA and Park Forest IL. So I guess this is Georgia and Illinois. And they are obviously not the same location. Like if I check the latitude, longitude, they're not the same. So these two, I will leave them separated. But all the other ones, that merge them. And once I do this, Open tells me, okay, based on this method of clustering, there are only those 2 left. There are actually more methods of clustering that you may want to try. So this is a bit technical and I wouldn't be able to explain, but it's just different ways to cluster. And yeah, if I have something of high quality, I would have to go through all of this. Here it seems that it's actually 2 different cities, one in California, one in Arizona. So I won't merge it, so you understand the logic. These ones might be the same, so I'll check this cluster. and they're both in Connecticut, and they have the same lat and longe, so they're probably the same, so I will merge those. Okay, let's just do one last. Southgate, California, and Michigan, so they are different, so I'll just merge those two. And this can go on and on because there are like 6 or 7 different methods of clustering. This one, metaphone and calling phonetic, they're based on the phonetic of the name, so they are much less right. But then you have the nearest neighbor that might give you some other things to think about, like Philadelphia and Philadelphia. We should check the name Philadelphia. There are 100 here, but the latitude and longitude are actually very close, and I see that the source is Philadelphia, CBS local, so it's obviously about Philadelphia. Still very close, and yeah, spelling, and I will want to merge this cluster. All right, so when you think you've and you're satisfied, then you can just close, and you will see that I just got rid of the the facet with the edges to get back to my whole cities. And so I see that now I'm done from 2071 to 2053, so I've done quite a bit of cleaning up. And then let's check the states. So we will use the text facet system again. And I see that I have 45 different states, which is a bit weird because if I'm not mistaken, in the US you have 50 states plus Washington, D.C. So let's go quickly through the list and try to see. Okay, I see a OH and OH, like capitalization for VA. So that's probably something that will be easily solved if we apply, and OpenRefine immediately shows which are the problems, like Florida was with a small L. All right, and after doing this, I only have 51 choices, which is much closer to what I had in mind. All right. So once I've done this, I can start doing a bit of analysis and see if and because I still have my states from my previous, from when I was checking how many states I have, I see that when I click Columbus, I actually have 5 different states listed. So it means it's not the same Columbus city, it's actually 5 different cities. So it's not really helping me to find which are the cities with the most gun deaths. So what I can do with my data is to combine the city name and the state name, like is usually done in the US because there are so many repetitions. So this will be done again easily in OpenRefine, and this time it will be the transform that I told you about. So city, edit cells, transform. And I will need to use a short formula. I will share it with you in the audio. I will share it with you in the menu, and because it's just value, so value of the column that I have selected. Then concatenation is like in Tableau done with a plus, not like with Excel, which is with a ampersand. So plus, then I want to add the state name, but I want a comma, space, and then the state name. And to add the state name, the grammar for OpenRefine will be something like this. So cell, states, and then value. I'll just share that with you because that's difficult to, I mean, that's not something you can invent. That's just something you need to learn from all the resources that you have and that you can find online. But once I do this, I can preview the results in the bottom pane, and I see that it's actually done what I wanted. So I just say OK. And now my city with the state. And if I check again, so I see I have more cities than before because there were lots of cities with the same name in various states. And my top 10 now doesn't include Columbus anymore. I think it's been replaced by Memphis or Oakland, and Columbus should not. So yeah, those are the things you can do with OpenRefine. And when you're done, you can export the file as a CSV or as an Excel, and you can also export the script, as I was telling you, so you can extract. Let's just do that together. Export. Let's export it as an Excel. Unless you say Excel. Yes, and when you open it in Excel, you will see that all the modifications are here, and it's ready to be used in Tableau. Sorry, what is this? Yeah. See, that's what we had. So cities and the states and everything. All right. So I hope this will be useful. I'm pretty sure I'm sure you will be curious, and I hope you will try it because there are not many free tools that can allow you to do so much data prep. Someone is asking me a Tableau application. This is not a Tableau application, but for back to school, we're trying to get people prepped up with their data. So we gave this free tools for prepping your data webinar, and then it's like if I imported this Excel in Tableau, then it would be very easy to analyze because I've done all the prep work. So if I just go to this Excel, this one, you will see that it's seamless in Tableau. So this is why we did this, so that when you have a data set that you would really like to explore, but it looks really messy, then you can use Excel and OpenRefine, and you'll get something that's usable for Tableau. I'll just need to correct the longitude to go. If you have any questions, yeah, I know. I was saying someone is saying that this tool is really great, and it's upsetting that it was there all along. It used to be Google Refine. It used to be supported by Google, and then Google stopped supporting it, so it was taken over by the community, and it still evolves. If you go to the Google page, you will see that if you have extra learning resources, you can reach out to me. I'll put back my Twitter handle if you need, but really a Google search should allow you to find most stuff because it's quite popular, especially among data journalists. All right, everyone. So I'll be sending you an email of follow-up with the recording. I hope the quality will not be too bad because I know some of you had audio problems. I hope not all of you. And it will include a link to the data set so that you can practice. Like it will include a link to all the stuff we saw today as a recap. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day or evening or afternoon, wherever you are. And we hope to see you again on some other Tableau trainings. Goodbye. Thank you.